thanks very much, and thanks for allowing me to come in and join you. So thanks to Hannah for this as well. So I'm Anne Jones, and I'm the Deputy Presiding Officer at the Assembly, but I'm also the Assembly member in the next constituency down the road going west, which is the Vale of Clwyd. So I've come from there this morning to be with you, and it's been great. So Hannah's asked me to chair this session now, the Q&A. This is always the bit I like, because it means that Hannah's answering all the questions, not me. So, but I probably will chip in every now and again. But I have to say, I think the slide behind me, well, it's a bit of a trades description to say youth for me, but certainly not for Hannah, because I started in the Assembly in 1999, so I'm one of the original Assembly members that are still there from the first 60 intake. So I'm one of 9 that are left in there. So I think to be saying that I'm sitting behind a youth parliament, the Welsh Youth Parliament there, I think, but nevertheless, that's something. So I'm going to start, and we've had loads of questions, so thanks very much. And what I'll try and do is paraphrase them, because there's quite a few on the same subject. So I think we'll start with Hannah. Did you have to have any special qualifications to become an Assembly member?
Wow. Well, it's actually, it's not like applying for a conventional job. You don't fill out a CV, but you do have what I describe as a very long interview. So anybody can stand for election. The reason why I did it is because for a number of years before that, I thought, I didn't realise something was politics when I was young, what it was, and I was politicised by things that happened in this area when I was growing up. So, during the 1980s when the steelworks closed and my granddad worked there, and they used to talk to me about what was happening, and what I didn't realise then is that was politics. And as I got a bit older, I started to get a bit more involved, and basically as a campaigner and an activist. And for a few years before I stood for election, I did some work with my old job with the Unite Trade Union, kind of working on policy and ideas for the Welsh Assembly. And I actually thought, I can make a difference here from the outside. I can complain, or I can actually, put my hat in the ring and step up and have a go myself. And I did that. And what you have to do initially, it's almost like going through 2 elections, isn't it, Anne? So
it is.
You have to go through a first one, because most of us stand on behalf of a party, and so you have to actually get chosen, elected by your own party first. So you have to go through that, and that was about a year before the election. And then what I said, it's like a very long interview, because you spend a long time knocking on the doors, going to events, doing things like this. And actually social media is a really good tool now to do that as well, but actually going to tell people why you're doing this, why they should put their trust in you, and what you're going to do if they do. And it never stops being an incredible privilege, and I'm in an incredibly privileged position, because this isn't a job, it's a way of life, but it's not many people get to do this, and I don't think you should ever forget how important it is that you do your best on behalf of your communities.
Okay. This year it's 100 years to when women partially got the vote, and I don't know whether any of you realise that it's quite a big thing this year. It's 100 years since some women got the vote. How difficult is it for a woman, do you think, to be get involved in politics? Have we made a difference, do you think, in politics?
I think we've obviously made huge strides in the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly proud to be part of an Assembly legislature that was the first to have more women than men in the Assembly, and although it's slipped back a little bit, we still have good levels of representation there, and I think it does make a difference to the debate, because I don't think it's just about gender, it's actually having people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, different experiences, because you're all doing different voices and representation to the table. But I think there are barriers to getting involved, particularly I think if you're a North Wales Assembly member as well, because anybody that's been to Cardiff knows it takes you a while to get there, and what it means for people like me and Anne is that you spend half your life the week down in Cardiff and half the week back here at home. So I spend a messy lot of time on trains, but it's actually how you manage to juggle your life. And for me at the moment, I think in the future, if you were having children, I think that is really difficult. You could leave a dog with my parents for the week, but I don't think I could leave a child with my parents for the week. So I think it's actually, I think we need to, and the Assembly is doing things to look at actually how we break down those barriers, and also too actually how when people stand for election, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's not a cheap thing to do as well. So you need to have the support of a support network of friends and family to help you when you do that. Also, you know, you need to have time off work as well to do it, and I was very lucky that I was able to do that, and I think we need to look to make sure more people are able to do that as well.
Okay. So, been there 2 years. Got a long way to catch me up, but there you go. So, I'm thinking back to my first 2 years when I was first in the assembly and all of the things that I did. What's the best thing you think about the job?
Well, I think the best thing is that when you have a lot of people come to you, kind of, you have things called surgeries, which are like advice sessions, or people email and write, and it's usually they come to your assembly member or your MP when they kind of tried everything else, and they, you know, they really need some help to get something sorted. And the best thing is when somebody comes back and says, oh, thank you because you helped, I've been able to change that and do something about it. And the loveliest thing is when you're out at a different event elsewhere and you meet somebody and they say, oh, thank you, you know, I was really unwell, you've helped, and now I'm back on my feet and I'm doing really well. And I think being able to stand up in the assembly and speak and raise these things as well is an incredible privilege to do. It's quite surreal when you first get in there though. You get in there and you feel like you kind of sat down and you're on a tour and somebody's about to tell you off and say, what are you doing here? So it takes a while to kind of get used to it, but...
That's good. And so now you, the Environment Minister for Wales, so we're lucky that we've got a cabinet people now from North Wales. So what things do you think you've done in the short time you've been the Environment Minister that will make a huge difference to our area?
So I became the minister. I was asked to be the Minister for the Environment in November, which was came as quite a surprise because I'd only been an assembly member for 18 months. But so now means that kind of I do that as well, being an assembly member at the same time. And I think for me, the thing about the environment is that it's not just actually taking action to things like recycling and plastic pollution and all those sort of I think problems with waste. It's not just about making sure we've got a better environment and it's there for you in the future and other future generations, but it's also actually we know that if we don't sort out the environmental issues, then it has an impact on the local economy as well and our health. So things like air quality. So I've been doing a lot of work in the last few months. That's one of my priorities actually. We have a lot of pollution now from emissions from cars, from perhaps some factories and things like that. So actually how we take steps to make sure that our air quality is not only good for people to protect people's health, but actually to look at how we for our communities to make sure that we have nice places to live as well. And in things like the environment, if we're looking at actually how we better reuse and recycle things, but at the same time that will bring new companies and technology, and I want to see more come to North Wales as well. So it also creates jobs as well for the future.
Good. We're sitting in front of the Welsh Youth Parliament there. So what's your view on lowering the age of voting? Should we lower the age of voting down to 16?
Yes. That's a very straight answer from a
politician.
politician.
A very straight answer from a politician. That's refreshing to know. So how many of you think you should vote at 16 rather than 18? Wow. Overwhelming. The motion is carried. There we are. We can go back and tell them that that's great. So we're talking about youth parliament now. So what do you think the youth parliament will bring to the assembly in the meantime while we're trying to lower the voting age?
It's really good to have that formal vehicle or institution to make sure that young people's voices are a part of our politics and what we do in Wales and at the heart of it, because I think too often that perhaps in the past that might have been overlooked because people think might have this wrong, actually as you've proven wrong today, this perception that young people don't care or aren't interested in politics. And like I said to you earlier, that just because you can't vote yet doesn't mean you still can't make sure that you hold me to account and contact your politicians and tell them what they should be doing on your behalf. I think for me, what would be really important about the Youth Parliament is not just actually about a physical parliament, or it's not just about being in the assembly, because we said that Cardiff's quite away from us, so actually making sure that it's something that actually goes out and around Wales, so actually all young people are given equal opportunity to be part of that and feed into it, that it's not just based in a single place.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We've had lots of questions on education, obviously. So a few here. I think we touched on the school meals, and that's something I think both you and I, when you were mentioning in your manifesto the school meals, free school meals, so we'll look at and why school meals are expensive. So I think we'll take that back and look at that. There's an interesting one here that says the government are giving millions of pounds to only grammar schools. So what's your view on that?
Well, firstly, I don't agree, and firstly because that's the UK government, so that's only happening in England. So we don't have any grammar schools in Wales, and we're not going to have any grammar schools in Wales. I think it's really important that we have equality across education, and all young people, children have the same opportunities regardless of where you live or where you're born. And I think it's really important that we don't single out specific schools. So stuff that we talked about at the beginning in terms of education. So we are responsible for education separately in Wales. So that's a policy for England.
Okay, but we're not going to do that in Wales, are we?
No.
We've said that. So also touched on in one of the manifestos was universities are expensive. So do you think that Wales will ever change the way that we fund universities, or that we offer students grants? So what they're asking for here is, will you ever guarantee a free university funding?
I think it's difficult in an ideal world, but I think it's difficult because we have, in terms of the money that the Welsh Government gets is limited, and our funding has gone down from what we get from the UK Government. So I think we would need a change of policy at a UK level, which then meant we would have, as a consequence, funding that would enable us to do things like that. And I think I would say at the moment is that we do have the best support package in comparison to England, and has recently brought in, I think Anne can help out with this, recently brought in built grant funding back for young people going to university.
Yeah, so if you're from Wales now, you will get a grant to go to a university. So which is different from in England. So we've worked hard on that. So
and I think there's a whole range of things we need to look at too to make university accessible. And I know young people something to do it. It's not for everybody. So I think it's about actually having parity of esteem for both university education and going down the apprenticeship route as well. But also I think we need to look at things, and I think that's what we've done in part of actually how we fund it in Wales and grants. That it's not just about the fees you have to pay. It's about actually if you go away to university, you're going to have to pay for rent and your books and everything else that goes with it. So actually how we best support that as well, because they're the things you're going to have to pay for straight away when you get there.
And then one of the questions that we've had again is, what do you think about in the future if police officers have to have a degree? So or people like police officers have to have a degree, so you couldn't apply for a job for the job of being a police officer without a degree. So I suppose it's the argument, university degrees versus apprenticeships, I think, which one of the groups brought up there. So should we be making everybody have a university degree before they can have what we think of public sector jobs?
I'm not convinced we should, because I think we should there should be different routes into the various professions. That one route might work best for one person than it does for another, and I think actually there should be different ways into the same profession, and it could be once you've got in there, you're then supported to take your education forward there, because I know that happens in a lot of big organisations, particularly in Flintshire, so like Airbus. So a lot of I've been in there quite a lot in my former job as well, that a lot of people come in and they might come in as apprenticeships at 16, and then eventually they are supported to go through and do an engineering degree as well. So a lot of those young people didn't expect they were going to do it, but because they had that support and mentoring and encouragement, they were able to do it in a different routes and not going away to university, but doing it as part of your work as well.
Yeah, that's good. Because I'm saying I'm too old for this now, but I didn't go to university, but I did my degree that I got through the trade union movement. So you mentioned the trade union movement earlier. So trade unions can offer quite a lot of benefits, and I did mine when I was working in the trade union, through the trade union movement, and did it through a long distance learning. It was quite tough.
I don't want to risk interrupting the deputy presiding officer.
Well, you carry on.
I know how fierce she is when she's chairing the assembly, but I just wanted to, the question I just want to ask, how many people here know what a trade union is?
Oh right, yeah, that's a good one. Do we know what trade unions are? Or you should be brave and put your hand up like that. You don't. So
another, how many people here are members of a trade union? There you go.
yeah, we all are. Okay, so perhaps we should go on, because you were the Unite regional officer for this area, weren't you? Were you? Oh, sorry, thought you were. I promoted you.
Yeah, I'll take the promotion.
Yeah.
No, so basically, trade unions are there to fundamentally to support people at work and provide advice if you need it. But they also have a wider role too that a lot of people don't know about, and as another route for kind of going, like getting further education as well.
Yeah.
And offers people support like that too. And it might be just courses over a day or a week or something like that, or it could be actually helping people go and do a degree as well.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we should have explained that really, wouldn't you? So when you start to go to looking at university and you're going off to apprenticeships, then I would suggest certainly that you look to the trade unions
and I think
as well.
it's even more important for younger people too, because it also helps you to know your rights at work.
Yeah.
And you should know your responsibilities and what you need to do, and certain rules you need to follow. But I think you also should know what your rights are at work as well.
So there's various questions, and I know a couple of groups brought up the question about the curriculum being different in Wales with the Welsh language. So I think that's something else as well that we'll look at again. So let's move a little bit away from formal education in schools, but just talk about youth clubs. And somebody wants to know here, can you keep the youth clubs open? I take it you mean the local youth clubs in Delyn, I suppose. Yeah, so is it keeping just all youth clubs?
Yeah, like maybe just local youth clubs.
Local youth clubs, so they are one for you then, because you're Delyn, so
Yeah, I think
she's Mrs. Delyn, aren't you? You miss Delyn, Mrs. Delyn, Miss Delyn.
yeah, it's really important, because I think one of the things we found, unfortunately, in the last kind of probably 8 or 9 years is that the public sector, so the things that fund all those things, has had less money to spend on it. And I think we've seen things, basically perhaps services or opening hours being rolled back, or things going all together, which I think it means, I don't want to see those services go, because I think it's really important that you have somewhere to go to as well, and something to do, and a place you can call your own fundamentally. And so I think it's actually how we perhaps now, I think we need a new way of doing things that suits the world we're in, and actually all working in partnership. So, working with, there's a role for the local councils, for town councils, community councils, for the Flintshire Council, for Welsh Government, for Assembly members. So actually, how can we actually make sure that we support those things? And also, are there other facilities we can make better use of that we don't use that are there? Can we work in partnership to make sure that we have access to other? I think one of the things that was floated out in the manifesto ahead of the Assembly election, I don't know, the teacher's going to look worried now, that school buildings, can they be used for things after school as well, that aren't necessarily after school clubs, but without actually putting in an extra burden on the teachers to have to look after that. So are there more creative things that we can do with the buildings we've got to actually give you more things that you can to use them more often as well?
So I think this will be the last question, because somebody just told me time-wise we're running short. So a couple of questions, I'll roll them into one here. Somebody wants to know, can they have physical rugby teams rather than tag rugby? And then based on that, because both of us are sports people, we like to go and watch it. You might play, I don't. I just go and watch. I'm a spectator. Why don't we have many more different sports competitions throughout the year? So I suppose that's based around, we all look at football, we all look at rugby, netball, we look at things like that. So I learned a new sport from talking to one of them. Dodgeball, you see, that's it.
I don't think you should try it, Anne.
No, I don't think I will try it. So there we are. So why can't we have physical rugby teams that play physical rugby? And then why don't we have many more of the sports competitions through the year? What's your view?
Yes, I'm a massive rugby fan, but I should say I'm definitely a spectator, not a player. And I do enjoy to cheer on Wales, especially in Six Nations. And it's always good when I can wind up colleagues too when we've beaten them. It was quite nice to go to Scotland to visit my counterpart in the Scottish Government the Monday after we'd beaten them at the rugby. And apparently that was the red lines of the meeting I wasn't meant to mention, and I might have accidentally mentioned it though. I think you're absolutely right. I think I think it's about in schools in terms of physical rugby versus tag rugby. I think I can understand the kind of concerns in terms of making sure you've got that balance if you're younger, and making sure people know how to tackle safely, I think, as well. And I think it's basically trying to get that balance of being cautious and over-cautious about somebody not having an accident, but actually enable people to play the game fully. And I don't know which school that came from, but whether there's more we can do, or you might already do it, I don't know, to link perhaps with the local rugby clubs a bit more, and work with them in terms of making sure people have the right skills and things like that. And in terms of different sports, yeah, I think often it might come down to capacity in the school and resources in terms of what the options are available, but there are various outside bodies that we can perhaps get in touch with to actually give a taster of things as well. And I know that when I was at school, I used to play netball and I used to play a bit of football, and one of the things that I'm quite passionate about is women's sport as well. And I'm really pleased that recently we started to see women's football getting more of a higher profile, and you've been able to watch it on the TV too. Because one of the barriers I found that when I got to 12, you can't play in mixed teams anymore, but then there was nowhere for me to go afterwards. So actually making sure that not just for sport, there's those options there. And I think one of the really good the presentations actually is not just about, not everybody wants to play sports, so making sure there's other options too, like as you mentioned, debating clubs and all those sort of things. So actually it's like what we call at university sports and society, so making sure there are those different options, because not everybody likes the same thing, not everybody's good at the same thing. I mean, I used to say actually when I played football I was probably about 30% talent and 70% enthusiasm, but it didn't stop me doing it because I enjoyed it and it was good for me.
Good. Oh, that's good. I think we're, I've just been told we're at the end now, and I wouldn't want to keep you from your lunch, so thank you, Hannah, for that. And did you find that interesting? Yes. Good. So how many of you now will want to follow Hannah down the route of being a or even come into the Vale of Clwyd and follow me down the route of politics?
Wow.
Some of you still, well, that's good though, that's good.
Better watch out.
How many of you have been totally put off by us? Nobody. Well, that's what we need, isn't it? So thank you, Hannah, thanks for arranging this.
Thank you.